Expansion will be coming to the NBA eventually. And so everyone is thinking a little bit about it. So let's do a fun exercise. It's time to think about who the Magic protected in expansion draft and what that says about the Magic's current roster today on Locked On Magic.
You are Locked On Magic, your daily Orlando Magic podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And you are indeed Locked On Magic. Today is September 22nd. It will be September 23rd, 2024. 1 week away from Media Day and the start of Orlando Magic season. My name is Philip Rossman-Reich. I'm the senior writer over at OrlandoMagicDaily.com. Of course, follow me on Twitter at PhilipRR_OMD. On today's episode of Locked On Magic, we're going to talk a little bit about a hypothetical expansion draft. This is a project that ESPN did last week. They did an actual mock expansion draft. We'll talk a little bit about what that says, what that process will be like. It's still a few years out, but we'll talk a little bit about who the Magic protect and what that says about the current roster. We'll get to that coming up here in just a moment. But first, we want to thank you again for making Locked On Magic part of your day every day, no matter when you listen to us, whether it's first thing in the morning, whether it's right when we upload. We truly appreciate you making Locked On Magic part of your day every day. Remember, there's a great Locked On podcast covering every single team in the NBA. Just search for Locked On and the team you're looking for, the Locked On Podcast Network. It's your team every day. Today's episode of Locked On Magic is brought to you by FanDuel. You can start the season with a big return on FanDuel. Place your first $5 bet and you'll get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. We all know expansion's coming to the NBA. Adam Silver can dance around the subject, can dance around the topic, but as we begin to game plan and think a little bit about how the Magic continue to build and grow, it's not just about, okay, let's align these contracts the way that we need to align them. You know, we know the Magic are going to be over the cap for the foreseeable future with Jalen Suggs contract. That is, I'd still say 65-35 likely to happen before the start of the season, before the October 21st deadline, a month away from that. There's still a lot, the Magic are going to have their contracts and their cap sheet set. But part of that planning, and surely part of what Jeff Weltman is considering as he begins to consider how to build this team out into the future, is about how do we make sure we are protecting or have the players that we need when the eventual expansion draft comes. It is, again, no secret. Adam Silver is, has not denied that expansion is coming. It is not a priority for the league right now. They're trying to just get the new TV deal cinched up. It's been announced. It's finalized. There's the lawsuit with Warner Brothers and TNT going on, but it's essentially done. The league wants to see some of that money come in, and then expansion is going to come. So we're probably looking at expansion happening around 2028, 2029. It's going to be around the time that contracts end for some of the key players on the team. KCP will be a free agent. Wendell Carter will be a free agent around then. Jonathan Isaac will be on the back half of his big deal. So, it's another contract cycle away, but we do have to think about it. And in any case, I do think expansion draft, or the idea of an expansion draft, is an interesting idea because it really makes you put some value on your players and allows you to assess your players. So I think this is a good exercise to do, to think a little bit about who the Magic would protect in an expansion draft. So it's been a while since there's been an expansion draft. We haven't had one since 2004 when the Charlotte Bobcats joined the league. There's a lot of fine tuning and things to it. If you read the ESPN article, they do have one of the teams, Las Vegas or Seattle, taking Corey Joseph. There's a little backroom dealing going on where they take a first-round pick to take Corey Joseph instead of Cole Anthony. That does happen, by the way. Way back in 1995, the Vancouver Grizzlies took Rodney Dent and a second-round pick so that they wouldn't take Darrell Armstrong. This is a thing that does actually happen. So some ground rules for the expansion draft, obviously. Each team, if the rules follow the same, is allowed to protect up to 8 players. 8 players are off limits in the expansion draft. Now, expansion teams usually enter the league with a lower salary cap, so they're not allowed to spend as much money. And that goes into some of the strategy of who do you leave exposed, who do you take on. That's part of the strategy of the expansion draft. But let's keep things really, really simple. We're not going to go do a mock expansion draft. We're not going to worry about that. Who are the 8 players the Orlando Magic would protect in an expansion draft if we were dealing with an expansion draft tomorrow? And again, this is the exercise I want to get into. I pretty much split this up into like 4 or 5 tiers. And the first tier is these guys are double protected. Like there's you don't even risk the threat of them being exposed to the expansion draft. Paolo, Banchero, Franz Wagner, and Jalen Suggs. Now, these double protected players, this is your core. You're not exposing your core to the expansion draft. You're not exposing a star level player to the expansion draft and to the possibility that they could leave. And that's that goes without saying. And we've talked about it a million times here. We've talked about it a lot. Paolo Banchero, Franz Wagner are your 2 potential all-stars. Jalen Suggs is going to get his deal. I think it'll, again, I'm 65-35 that they're going to announce a deal before the October 21st deadline. Jalen Suggs is going to get a very, very, very nice new contract to stay with the Orlando Magic because he is that important to what the Orlando Magic do. So he is going to be on the Magic for a long time. And so those 3 players, that's your core. At the end of the day, these are who the Magic are building around. These are the players the Magic care most about. Every other move they make is being done to make these players better, hopefully, to make these players better, to make their jobs easier, to allow them to be their best versions of themselves without extra pressure, extra double teaming, extra whatever. These are the guys the Magic are building around. Now, we're going to learn over the next 2-3 years how far that takes the Magic. And, maybe by the time expansion comes around, Jalen Suggs is in that piece, or Franz Wagner is in that piece, or, Paolo Banchero isn't that piece. I don't think that'll be the case. I think this is the 3 the Magic are going to go with for at least the next 5 years. And these will be the central figures to determining how far into the playoffs the Magic go and how good they can be. These guys aren't going anywhere. The next group of players that I would say, the next 3 players that I grabbed, that I said, okay, I am protecting these 3 players. Wendell Carter. Now I got to double check my list. I don't have my list memorized. Wendell Carter, Jonathan Isaac, and Kentavious Caldwell-Pope. The reason why I'm protecting Wendell Carter, again, this is not for 2 years from now. I think in 2 years that might change. But looking at this current roster, the Magic don't have another reliable starting center. Goga Bitadze is nice, but he is flawed. Wendell Carter is an excellent passer. He's an excellent screener. He's a solid rebounder, despite the numbers last year. Still a good rebounder, even with lower raw numbers. He's a good shooter for a center. He does everything. I constantly say he's the fulcrum. Everything kind of revolves around him. He sets the tone for this Magic team. And again, minus injuries, we did a whole episode on him last week. Minus injuries, Wendell Carter is very serviceable. And I've seen a lot of trade pitches and trade articles out on the interwebs and out on the internet. And every single one of them I say no to because the Magic aren't getting a better center back. And as much as I think a lot of us are eager to see Jonathan Isaac play some more center and play some more minutes, we'll talk about him later in the week for our Player Outlook series. As much as I think we'd all like to see Jonathan Isaac take on a bigger role, Wendell Carter is still the best option. And I was proven in the playoffs again. And again, Wendell Carter is good and good for this team. I'm expecting a bounce back year from him. But at the end of the day, I am not moving Wendell Carter unless I know I have a better option coming back, unless I know a better center is coming my way. So I would protect Wendell Carter. I am not ready to let him go. Maybe I'm in the minority on that, but I'm not letting him go. Jonathan Isaac is very much the same way. Jonathan Isaac is on a really affordable contract for the amount of production and the amount of impact that we all think Jonathan Isaac can make, or that the Magic seem to think Jonathan Isaac can make. $15 million is nothing. And I know he's getting paid 25 this year. That's a lot. But 15, 14 and a half, 14 and a half, 15 over the next 4 years. that's going to be a freaking discount for one of the best defensive players in the league, potential all-defensive team player, potential sixth man of the year. I think Jonathan Isaac will be in the running for sixth man of the year. He finished ninth in sixth man of the year voting last year, and he wasn't the sixth man last year. I think Jonathan Isaac's offense is going to take a step up now that he had a healthy offseason. I think we're going to see a much more productive Jonathan Isaac, up around 10, 11, maybe 12 points per game, up from 6. I think we'll see him double his point output and double his role, because, again, the Magic want him out on the floor as much as possible. The last guy I have on my must-protect list is Kentavious Caldwell-Pope. Magic just signed him to a 3-year deal. I think they value that veteran shooting. I think they value that veteran leadership. I'm not convinced he will finish those 3 years in Orlando. I think there'll be some moving and shaking. And again, we'll see what Jalen Suggs looks like this season with the point guard play, which is the biggest concern, obviously, with him. But I really, really think, I think KCP is essential to what they do. They obviously invested and picked him to be there. If the Magic had to do an expansion draft tomorrow, they're keeping Kentavious Caldwell-Pope. I hope that shows you, though, that's 6 players right there. Essentially the starting 5, and then Jonathan Isaac off the bench. Those are your top 6 players. That shows you how quickly things get eaten up in the expansion draft. I'll explain to you why I'm not protecting who you think with my other 2 picks. We'll get to that coming up here in just a moment. But first, today's episode of Locked On Magic is brought to you by FanDuel. Hey, NFL fans, I know it was a rough Sunday for the Bucks and the Dolphins, but you can still start the season with a big return on FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. And you'll get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. That's only at FanDuel.com. FanDuel has great offers for the NBA with the Magic over under 47.5 wins. I believe they are still only +1 for their opening night game, which is 1 month from Monday, October 23rd, down in Miami. NBA season is going to come very, very quickly. But if basketball is not your game and you want something a little bit more immediate, the Jacksonville Jaguars are +5.5 at the Buffalo Bills and Monday Night Football. And of course, early line with big noon kickoff coming to UCF. You can get UCF Colorado. UCF favored by 13.5. That over-under of 63.5 is looking awfully spicy as well. UCF favored by 13.5 over Colorado this week, only on FanDuel. You can check out all these great offers, get those live bets and more over at FanDuel.com. We want to thank you for making Locked On Magic part of your day every day. For your next listen, enjoy the Locked On NBA podcast. There is no offseason in the NBA, and Locked On NBA provides daily basketball analysis from national and local experts in 30 minutes or less. No one keeps you as informed and entertained as Locked On NBA. It's available on YouTube or wherever you get podcasts. It's all part of Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. So on today's show, we are doing a mock expansion draft, or mock expansion protection list, because I think it tells you a little bit something about what the team values. It allows you to rank order your players. I think that aspect is important too, and gives you a sense of where the team might go next, or where the team might feel a little soft. Again, I think obviously you're protecting your core players. Paolo Banchero, Franz Wagner, Jalen Suggs. Those go without saying. Jonathan Isaac is, been a big boost to your defense, and has been a player who is so strong defensively. You're going to keep him for your culture. And obviously you've invested a lot of money in him. The same goes for Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, a player you just signed. Wendell Carter might be on thinner ice in the big picture, but you're not losing him for nothing. Without getting a better center in return, you're going to stick with Wendell Carter in the end. That leaves us only 2 spots. And this is where I think you have to game out the expansion draft a little bit. Because again, expansion teams typically, or in the past, have operated with a reduced salary cap. So they're not allowed to go out and spend a lot of money. So if you're going to game this, it's okay to put a big money player on the unprotected list, because that puts a lot of pressure on the expansion team. You don't want to put too good of a player. Like Franz Wagner is probably worth eating up 50% of a new team, of the Seattle Supersonics cap. Paolo Banchero is certainly worth eating up 50% of the Seattle Supersonics cap. I know Magic fans still a little worried about that. I wouldn't be quite yet. Magic have 7 more years with Paolo Banchero to figure everything out. 7 years is a long time. This is where you kind of game things. And so I think if we're doing a mock expansion draft, I think the Magic protect Anthony Black and Tristan da Silva. Rookie contracts are the most valuable contracts in the NBA right now, because with all, the rookie salary scale is not, if, you sign Franz Wagner to a deal with 8% raises, he's still getting 25% of the cap, but the cap's going to increase with more, a higher percentage in the amount of raises that you could give Franz Wagner. So that deal doesn't kill you in the long run. Rookie contracts are not increasing with the salary cap. Rookie contracts are still going to be bargain basement deals. And if you look around the league, the teams that are able to maintain their dynasties, maintain their consistency, yes, the Miami Heat drafting Jaime Jaquez. The Denver Nuggets essentially had to pick Zeke Naji or Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, and they picked their draft picks, Christian Brown, Peyton Watson, and then, yes, Zeke Naji overpaying Kentavious Caldwell-Pope. That's what broke up their dynasty, and a lot of Denver's future is now tied on getting their draft picks right. This is going to be the same for the Orlando Magic. The Orlando Magic are over the cap. Before we get to Jalen Suggs' contract, Orlando is over the projected cap for next year. So next summer, when we get to free agency, it's about who's going to take the non-taxpayer mid-level exception. It's going to be about finding trades to create trade exceptions or create some wiggle room to bring players in. We're not playing free agency anymore. Just throw those, those free agent lists are important. Don't throw them out. But we're not going shopping at the grocery store anymore. We got to barter a little bit to improve the roster. And that makes rookie contracts that much more valuable. And if I have to protect two, I'm protecting Anthony Black, who last year started 30 plus games, showed me that he can defend at a high level, continues to show that he can grow a little bit as a playmaker, grow a little bit as a point guard and leader, which he did in summer league to a lot of extent. We'll see what it looks like when we get to training camp, when we get to the regular season. I think the Magic are very, very high on Anthony Black and his future. I am keeping Anthony Black. The same is for Tristan da Silva. We saw at Summer League how good Tristan da Silva is, how he fits into a roster, how he can make his team better just with his basketball IQ, just be in the right spots. And he is a rookie, and rookies are bad, but he's a veteran rookie. And they are less bad because they know what to do. They know where to be on the floor. They know how to complement other players, especially the way Tristan da Silva plays. I really think Tristan da Silva is going to be a really solid player for this team. I'm really excited to see him play and really excited to see him take the floor for this Magic team because I think he's going to contribute. I think it's going to be hard not to give him minutes. They're going to have to find a way to give him minutes. The only concern is maybe his lateral movement playing the three. Those two I would protect because, again, they're on these really cheap rookie contracts. Whatever you can get, if you can set them up for mid-tier extensions, that's a huge win as a draft. And again, the Magic are going to have to be a good drafting team moving forward. Doing that, though, exposes some very key players. Cole Anthony, Mo Wagner especially, exposing them in the expansion draft is a huge risk. Same thing with Jett Howard. Jett Howard, the same deal, rookie contract. I can only protect two. Jett Howard had deferred a year. There's a reason they deferred a year for him. There's a reason they still very much believe in him. Jett Howard is the kind of player that if I were an expansion team, that's the kind of player I'd be targeting. Like a player who just can't find minutes on a good team, but is a really talented young player. Honestly, I'd be curious to know what ESPN's list was for the Magic. I don't think they revealed the whole 8-team list or 8-player list. I would imagine Jett Howard was on that list. It was not protected. I imagine he was available, and I imagine that would have been a very attractive player, certainly more attractive than Corey Joseph, even though a solid veteran on a minimum contract is also really valuable to a team that's going to be very young. Essentially, why the Magic have Corey Joseph on their team is to be a solid veteran on the bench. You don't need him to play a lot. You just need him to be a presence on the roster. So Cole Anthony and Mo Wagner, though, are essential players of this team, but they're not essential. Again, I hate to say this because we love all of these players on this team. They're not essential. They are bench players. They are role players. They play their roles really, really well. They're really important to what the Magic do, but you can find other players that do what they do. Again, I don't mean to put those guys down. They're very good at what they do. They're very important to this team as constructed, but those are the kind of players that you do risk leaving unprotected. And Cole Anthony's on a very affordable deal. And I think ESPN made this point really, really well. They would have picked Cole Anthony if the Magic didn't sweeten the deal to prevent them from doing it. Those are the key players. Again, and that, I think, again, says something about the roster, says something about what this Magic team values and what this roster is going to look like 2, 3, 4 years down the road. These are the players that matter. These are the players that we have to have on the roster, that we have to prevent other teams, with a chance for a team to steal a player. These are the guys we got to hoard. Those 8 players. They take Cole Anthony. It sucks. It's terrible. The Magic have to find a way to fill in. Not the end of the world. Not completely losing sleep. Not completely losing sleep over that prospect. So again, that's what I think this says. Again, Gary Harris, you lose him, not the end of the world. I didn't think the Magic were going to re-sign him. They obviously did. I think a lot of Magic fans will be calling for Jett Howard to play a lot more, especially as the season begins. Goga Batadze is a solid center, but a third option for this Magic team, not losing sleep over him. Caleb Houston, not losing sleep, losing him. I think it's a big year for Caleb, but again, just, he's going to be in the way of Tristan da Silva, and Corey Joseph, obviously, again, a veteran player to fill out the roster. So that's my mock expansion list. I'm curious what your lists are. Leave them in the comments. Send them to me on Twitter. But I think those are my 8. I think if I had an expansion draft tomorrow, those are my 8. I think those are the players that matter most to this team in the long run, and the players that the Magic would be most trying to protect if they got into a lottery situation. Let's shift gears, though. Last week, we saw leaks of the Orlando Magic City Edition jersey as well as their NBA Cup court. I'll explain what those say, Magic fans' reaction to them, and what it all means coming up here in just a moment. But first, today's episode of Locked On Magic is brought to you by our friends over at eBay Motors. Passion, drive, and patience, the formula for winning championships, is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. Superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has you covered. With more than 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you will always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to make your car the MVP and bring home huge wins. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit is only available to U.S. customers. So last week, we got some unconfirmed news, but it's unconfirmed, but it feels very real. It feels very, very solid. And I think enough people picked it up that I think that this is solid, that this is solid enough to talk a little bit about. Last week, a user on Twitter leaked all 30 of the City Edition jerseys. The Orlando Magic will wear essentially a white version of their Kingdom jerseys, the Kingdom on the Rise jerseys that they've worn over the last 2 years. It's a white pinstripe, that Western Gothic font that the Magic have been using with, I believe it's Magic with the star as the A, which is important. White kind of chainmail look on the jersey, but still pinstripes with some accent, with some black accenting on the side. For me, honestly, the general response to these jerseys have been like, they're they're all right. I have seen some NBA fashion people say like, these jerseys are among the best of the new City Edition jerseys. It is not a great City Edition jersey crop, looking at you, Boston. But generally, these have been inoffensive. And honestly, the Kingdom on the Rise jerseys that the Magic have used for the last 2 years and seem to be preparing to use for year number 3 have been inoffensive. I have not hated them. I love the jersey concept. I love, the color is a little too dark for Magic Blue. The font is trying a little too hard, like the whole Kingdom on the Rise thing with even the video board doing the medieval motif. Little bit too far. That's like the Magic have never leaned into that aspect of Magic, I suppose. But it's been fine. It's been inoffensive. If the white jerseys that have been going around the internet, and there'll be links on my social pages. You can check my Patreon page as well as Orlando Magic Daily for commentary on this. To see the jerseys as well as the court I'm going to talk about in here in a minute. It's inoffensive. Like generally, again, like this has been my approach to the City Edition thing. It's really hard to come up with a brand new jersey idea every year. I think it's okay to recycle some ideas or put, color variations on different ideas. I'm fine with a third Kingdom jersey. Again, these have been inoffensive. They're not terrible. They're not the greatest thing in the world, but they're not terrible. The white jersey, to me, if this is what the Magic are going to wear for their NBA Cup games as well as City Edition nights, I think this is the best version of that jersey. I am very, very excited about this jersey. I do really, really like it. I'm looking forward to getting in the mail, which the Magic tend to send to the media. Further, last week, a user on Twitter was able to access hidden files within NBA 2K25 to reveal all 30 of the NBA Cup courts. Hopefully the NBA, with a little bit more time, is able to make courts that aren't so slippery, but gone is that middle stripe. And in are these like kind of inlaid logos relating to each team. So like Detroit has a couple of their secondary logos. Boston went with the parquet, so they will be playing on parquet again. It's a nice, interesting idea. And among Magic fans, the Magic court, that was the image that was shown of the Magic court, the digital image, got rave reviews. The Magic court will have stars, like not pinstriped, but like stars in lines, kind of like last year's Classic Edition jersey in the court or on the court. It's still kind of this light gray, which, you can love or hate. I prefer just doing wood. I don't like loud courts. I get annoyed when I see NBA 2K with a lot of loud courts. But it's fine. It looks good. Magic fans seem to absolutely love it. And obviously, I think a lot of Magic fans are eager to see new Magic designs. And I think they're very interested in what the Magic look like on the court. It is no secret that the Orlando Magic are at least considering a rebrand. Alex Martin told The Athletic in 2021 that the team is studying a potential rebrand. It's also very, very clear over the last 2 or 3 seasons, the Orlando Magic have really begun to embrace their nostalgia. Last year was the 35th anniversary season, obviously, so there's a lot of nostalgia. But over the last 2 years, they've reintroduced the Orlando Magic theme song. We've seen coaches and players wear essentially throwback gear with the throwback logo. The Magic did introduce a new marketing slogan called Make It Magic. Notable on that was the return of the star instead of an A in Magic. I have friends who work for the Magic. They did Magic U last week, which is the big kind of preseason work get together and community service event. Everyone was wearing stuff with the Make It Magic font on it. So I think the Magic are at least test trialing the font as a font that they're using, which is a little bit more modern. It's not like the old font. It's not kind of cartoonish like the 90s font was. But it's a little bit more modern and sleeker. It's not my favorite font, but if the Magic essentially did that with the streaking basketball or kind of brought that back in to make it a future, like more modern version of the original logo, that I saw someone mock that up. I didn't hate it. But I think the point is, even though the Orlando Magic are building to a new generation and building to a new era of Magic basketball, there is still this undeniable pull of nostalgia. There is still this undeniable feeling of let's bring back all of the original word marks. Let's bring back the original pinstripe logos. Look, the Orlando Magic have had the same logo now since the 2010 season, or 2011 season, excuse me, with their move to the Amway Center, to the Amway Kia Center. And I remember describing it as like, this is, the Orlando Magic are 21, 22 years old now. This is the Orlando Magic logo growing up. It's gone as the star. It's very kind of like professional, very, very like it's structural, architecturally, I guess, is how I would describe it. It's just very bare bones, no character, no personality. And look, again, it's not the most offensive thing in the world. Looking at you highlighter Utah Jazz jerseys, it's not the most offensive thing in the world, but it's not distinctive. And I think it is telling that most of the Magic gear that you buy and most of the Magic word marking is now essentially only that secondary logo, the streaking ball. And the streaking ball logo, secondary logo, has been used since the 1999 season. It wouldn't surprise me if the Magic aim to keep that incorporated in their logo somehow as a more modern version of the star basketball that the Magic used to have. But that's essentially the Magic's logo now. It's like there's no words anymore in the Magic logo. Like no one cares about the Magic's full logo, and I think that is a problem. As for the jerseys, the Orlando Magic have had the same jersey now since the 2009 season. While the 2009 season is certainly a season to celebrate, similarly, I've kind of described the Orlando Magic's jerseys as a modern take on the original pinstripes. Like they weren't going back to, but a modern professional take on the pinstripe uniforms. The Magic were not going back to the cartoonish font. That's just not the way the NBA was. That's how the NBA was in the 90s. It's not how it is anymore. They went with those kind of blocky, futuristic looking letters, which they again used in the logo and that rebrand. And it was inoffensive, but not memorable. And so obviously there is this pull for nostalgia. Like the Magic came out of the gates with a fashion icon. The pinstripe jerseys, the whole Magic wardrobe at the beginning of the franchise's history, the first 10 years of the franchise's history, and even building on it with the T-Mac era jerseys that they wore as their classic editions last year. Magic fans are just, I can't tell you how many times, and I'm sure the comments are going to say it down below if you made it this far in the video. Magic fans have just told me, why don't the Magic just go back to those jerseys? And I wish they could. There are NBA rules that do not allow them to. They have to do a spin or a different take on logos, word marks, and jerseys that are deemed classic. Once something is put in the vault, it is released for a limited time only and then put back in the Disney vault, never to be released again, or at least until an anniversary season. You can do takes on it. Like the Atlanta Hawks brought the Pac-Man logo back by kind of crunching it and tilting it. The Utah Jazz changed the color of their mountains, and that's why they got that logo back. It's weird. It's weird. Don't worry about it. But clearly, as the Magic determine what they want this new generation of Magic basketball to look like, because Orlando has been pretty consistent about one thing. They have a different look for each generation of their franchise. Shaq had the Shaq look. They changed it when Shaq left. Penny and T-Mac kind of shared that new look, that second look. The third look we don't talk about because it was boring and dumb. Then they went to the look that they have now for Dwight Howard. They obviously haven't had a star to tether a new look to. Now they do. And very, very clearly, I think the Magic have been good about this. I don't mean to, I'm not telling the Magic to rush their process. Whenever it happens, it happens. But very clearly, the Magic have to understand that while we are all looking for the future and all looking for something new, we're also still very much nostalgic for how great our fashion was in the past. And what's been popular about the Kingdom jerseys, it's mixed reviews on the Kingdom jerseys, but what's certainly popular about what the NBA Cup Court is reportedly going to look like is this nostalgia for what the Magic used to be, for what the Magic's word marks, logos, jerseys used to be. There's a reason why the Classic Edition jerseys were so beloved. There's a reason why the Orlando Magic theme song made its comeback. It reminds us of so many great memories and so many great memories to come. I love that the Magic remixed that theme song and gave it a modern spin so that a new generation could have it. And it would be different. It would remind the old generation about things, but give the new generation new memories. Again, retro's in. It's all fine. I think as the Magic when the Magic do rebrand, and I think it's going to come in the next year or two, it's going to feel nostalgic. And I think that is important because I think that's what Magic fans want. That's what's popular about these rebrands, and that's what's popular about where the team is going next. But we'll see when we get the official announcement of everything. We'll see what that rebrand looks like when it does finally come down. I want to thank you all again for listening to today's episode of Locked On Magic. Of course, find me on Twitter at @PhilipRR_OMD. Subscribe to the podcast and Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, TuneIn, Himalaya, Google Play, Spotify, Odyssey, and all the Fun Channel podcasts to your podcast-enabled listening device. For the latest on the Orlando Magic, be sure to check out OrlandoMagicDaily.com. You can follow us there on Twitter at @OMagicDaily. And for even more Orlando Magic content, be sure to check out my Patreon page, the Orlando Magic Hub, at patreon.com/Orlando Magic Hub. As always, thank you for your support. Now that you're done listening to me, be sure to check out the Locked On NBA podcast, where local experts keep you updated daily on all the biggest storylines ahead of the season. Find Locked On NBA on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. That's going to do it for me today, though. On our next episode of Locked On Magic, we will start talking about the big questions the Magic face as training camp begins. We'll be 1 week away from training camp, so we'll talk about what questions the Magic have to face over the next couple weeks as preseason begins, as camp begins, as we get ready for the regular season. We're almost there, folks. You can see the light at the end of the tunnel, but we'll get to it in due time. Until then, though, for Orlando Magic Daily and Locked On Magic, this has been Philip Rossman-Reich. We'll see you all again next time for another episode of Locked On Magic.